Hey everybody, it's Mrs. Rendock coming to you live from the kitchen table. Look, Seamus is here. If you remember Seamus from the math videos. I got some nice summer lighting going on. Thought I would share with you, this is the book I am reading right now, The Lying Game. That's about how far I am. I love it. It's getting better every time I turn a page. So, thought we would check in on Scoob and Gma and see what's going on in Clean Getaway. So, 10-second summary. Scoob and Gma were camping in Gma's Winnebago, and then he discovered her, and she was crying, and that's when they first realized all of a sudden Dad was calling. And if you'll remember, oops, that's just like I text. They are driving in, I think they were in Alabama last I looked, or maybe crossed into Missouri, and they're following the Green Book, which is an actual book that helped African Americans navigate the South in a safe way during the time of the Jim Crow laws. So, here we go. Route 6, or Chapter 6, A Good Thing. Scoob doesn't say a whole lot as they hit the road. The green license plate... Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sidebar. Remember? Scoob caught Grandma changing the license plate to a different state. Okay, back to the story. Scoob thought the green license plate and the words, "Make a run for it," are too busy playing ultimate frisbee with his thoughts for him to even speak. But pretty soon, he and Gma are stopping to refuel the RV and to go number 2. Nobody wants to empty that from the tank in Birmingham, Alabama. Ew, I can't believe I just read that. Once the gas is pumped, the poop is dumped, and they're back strapped in and ready to roll, Gma suddenly looks, troubled. Like maybe about to cry, kind of troubled, which he really doesn't want to see happen again. For one, he's already got too much in his head, and for two, it makes him super uncomfortable when Gma cries because he doesn't know what to do. "Gma, are you okay?" She takes a deep breath. She cranks the engine. "I don't want to make any real Birmingham stops, but, well, we gotta," she says. "There's something you need to see, Scooba-Doob." Not scary at all, right? Okay. Yikes, sounds like she doesn't like Alabama, or Birmingham, Alabama at all. As they drive, Scoob can feel the Green Book in his pocket against his right booty cheek. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm reading this. He doesn't remember exactly how many safe lodging places were listed in Birmingham, but he's sure he wouldn't need more than one hand to count them. Wow. Now he's wishing he had paid more attention to Gma's Alabama map. Was something circled there? Much sooner than Scoob expects, they're pulling into a parking lot between 2 big brick buildings. Gma shuts off the RV and moves to get out. "Gma, are you sure we're allowed to park here?" "Oh, we won't be long," she says. "Hop on down." Scoob does as he's told, and they head toward the building on the left. "So that," she points to a building across the street, "I believe is the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute." "Whoa," Scoob says. It takes up a whole block. And they reached the intersection of 16th Street and 6th Avenue, according to the sign on the traffic light posts. And speaking of signs, there's a really old-looking one attached to the building in front of him, is the 16th Street Baptist Church. Anybody know the name of that church? You should. Scoob nods. The church isn't as big as the one Dad drags him to every Sunday, but a wide set of steps leads to a covered porch-like area set between 2 square towers with domed roof. Reminds Scoob of a school. I see. Gma doesn't expound, which is fine. Well, yes, Scoob's wondering if this is another stop she and G-Pop never made because of the circumstances. He's not real sure he wants to ask. 'Cause, potential Gma tears and all that. But then the silence between them stretches on and on. Scoob's elbow throbs, almost like it's prompting him to speak up. So here it is. So he opens his mouth, but he can't come up with anything to say. So he closes it. And then Jima sniffles. Sniff, sniff. And there it is. Oh, come on, Jima, don't cry. People can just be so awful, Scooba-Doob, she says. Yeah. Bryce's fat head pops into Scoob's brain. Sucks when they get away with it, too. We stopped here. She sniffles again. Your G-Pop and I. Now she's got Scoob's attention. You did? April 3rd, 1968. I'll never forget it, because it was the day before Martin Luther King was assassinated. He'd preached in this church. We were halfway through Mississippi the next day when we heard about Dr. King being killed in Memphis. Whoa. Scoob knows all about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Dad have gone to the Ebenezer Baptist Church and Dr. King's birth home ever since MLK Day, since Scoob learned how to walk. On their most recent visit, Scoob even got on a replica of a segregated bus and sat behind the colored line. It was, well, to be frank, Scoob still hadn't figured out how he feels about the whole thing. In 1963, this church was bombed by some god-awful men, and 4 little girls were killed. It was bombed? Scoob says. Jima nods. This is where civil rights leaders, Dr. King included, used to gather and strategize. The same idiots who didn't like seeing your grandfather and me together weren't real keen on black folks having the same rights as white ones. This church stood for something they didn't like, so they tried to blow it up. She shakes her head. Your G-Pop and I were never religious, but we felt we had to stop and pay our respects as we were passing through on our trip. He stayed in the RV, and I just stood there on the sidewalk, like you and I are, but seeing the place with our own eyes. Speaking of eyes, Jima's narrow, and her sunshiny old face suddenly reminds Scoob of a raging storm, like lightning flashing in it and everything. 39 years, she said. Took him 39 years to convict that hateful man who killed those little girls. Can you believe that? Scoob is 84% sure she's not talking to him anymore, but knowing what he knows, he can't say he's surprised. Meanwhile, they locked my Jimmy up and threw away the key without a second thought, and he didn't even kill anybody. Whoa. Now Scoob's 100% sure she's not talking to him, 110% even. And I just let him. Jima's crying for real now. She wipes her nose on her neon orange jacket sleeve. He's a good man, and I let him. More tears streak down, and she shakes her head. I shouldn't have. It wasn't right. If I could just go back and fix it. And now she's wringing her hands, which are shaking. It freaks Scoob out a little. Was there something fixable about G-Pop going to prison? Why does Scoob feel like there are bugs crawling all over him right now? Jima? He touches her shoulder and she jumps. He has to catch her upper arm and waist to keep her from falling. Whoa, you okay? She looks at him like she's seeing a ghost, eyes wide, and she's scared and trembling. Jima? She stares at him for a few seconds, and it feels like eternities, and then blinks a few times and seems to come back to herself. Her eyebrows tug down, and she slowly pulls her arm away and rights herself. William, what are you? She looks around. Oh my. She dusts her jogging suit off. Well. She stands tall. Well, as tall as you can stand at 4'11". She lifts her chin. Let's get a move on, shall we? Hop to it, kiddo. Need to get across the state line as quick as we can. Campsites at the next park are first come, first serve. And she turns on a GOS, Grandma Orthopedic Sneaker, and heads back to the RV. They ride in silence for a good while. Can you hear Luna? She's crying out there. That's my donkey. Anyway, back to the story. They ride in silence for a good while. Scoob doesn't know what to say. And anyway, his head is spinning, so it's not like he could form sentences if he tried. Someone tried to blow up a church with little kids in it. Also, what did G-Ma mean about fixing whatever happened with G-Pop? Then there's the whole license plate thing. Scoob looked. There is definitely a Vermont tag license plate on the Winnebago now, which is strange enough to think about without considering G-Ma's use of the phrase, make a run for it. And yet that's dancing around in his mind too. He sighs and pulls the road map G-Ma gave him from his backpack, opens to the Alabama part, and circles Birmingham. Draws a little church over it. You making your own annotations over there, kiddo? Grandma says, breaking the unanswerable questions spiraling through Scoob. Oh, yes, Scoob says, guess I am. She nods. You know, I'm really glad you're here with me. He swallows down his unease and forces a smile. I'm glad I'm here too, G-Ma. Which is partly true. He's definitely glad he's not at home in James Robert Lamar Jr.'s personal version of house arrest, though he can't help but wonder if G-Ma really did send that text message to let Dad know they were okay. Why he's thinking about this now, he couldn't say, but he's got to ask. G-Ma, did you I wanted to take this trip with your daddy, she says. You did? Why he's surprised he doesn't know. Dad is G-Ma's son. For years I wanted to, but I never did. Never even mentioned it to him. There she is. Why not? Couldn't muster up the courage, she says. Didn't want to face the questions I knew he would ask, especially about your G-Pop. And she shakes her head. Now Scoob's uncomfortable again, and he's just figured out why. Ever since they were at the church, she's been telling him stuff normally she wouldn't. Almost like they're friends instead of grandma and grandkid. It's one thing to talk to somebody his age as a friend. He and Shanice obviously talk all the time. But a grandma? Grandmas are even more grown up than regular grown-ups. How is he supposed to even respond? Anyway, for a minute at that Yankee restaurant, I felt like he was with me, took me right back. Scoob is confused now. Wait, what do you mean, G-Ma? The way those people were staring at us, the man with the face the color of a pig's rear end, and the ugly woman with that hooked nose? Scoob can't help but smile at her descriptions. There was a brief moment when I looked at you and I saw your daddy. She turns and her blue eyes rove over Scoob's face in a way they never have before. When your daddy was a little boy and he and I would go places, people were usually nice to me but crummy to him, she says. And when they'd find out he was my son, well, let's just say I've seen the nice to nasty switch flip a few more times than I care to think about. There was this one time, your daddy was about 5, I think. He and I were a few towns away from home because I'd gone to interview for a teaching position at a new school and couldn't find a babysitter. Anyway, we go in this grocery store, and Jimmy was upset because I told him he couldn't have a candy or something, typical kid stuff. And she waves her hand like no big deal. He was pulling on my dress and whining a bit, and this store owner comes over with a wooden paddle and says, Is this little N-word bothering you, ma'am? I can take care of him. Except he actually said the word. Scoob's eyes go wide. I'll never forget it. Your daddy was hiding behind my legs, scared out of his wits at this point. When I kindly told the man that Jimmy was my son, and we were just fine, thank you very much, the old buzzard looked at me like I had cursed his mama and kicked us plumb out of the store. Can you believe that? The nerve of that man. As G-Ma seethes, Scoob stares at her little hands on the steering wheel and then down at his own. Where his are the color of a kind of old penny, hers, though brown-spotted, are so pale you can see the blue of her veins. And it's not like he never noticed before. It just feels like a big deal than he knew possible. Scoob, after all, is darker skinned than his dad. Why does it feel like everything's changing super fast? You're an incredible kid. You know that, Scoob? Grandma says out of the blue. Thanks, I guess. You remind me so much of him. Of my dad? Which is not a compliment as far as he's concerned. She shakes her head. No, she says. Of your G-pop. Oh. The sudden switch is disorienting, but Scoob tries to go with it. Jima's smiling. And yes, it's clear from the past 12 hours there is a lot Scoob doesn't know about his grandfather. But still, the guy spent most of his life in prison, where Scoob never wants to go. One thing's for sure. No matter how many nice stories G-Ma has about James Robert Lamar Sr., Scoob is not so sure being like him in any way is a good thing. Oh, wow. Look at this. So we have a new state. So we crossed into Mississippi. Change that. You can see it. And guess what? We're going back to Route 7. And it's called Moving Forward. So let's see what the Mississippi map has. It's called the Magnolia State. And the motto is Be Valor and Arms. Or By Valor and Arms. I don't know. I guess that's bravery. And there's a big treasure chest and a bird of some kind. Oh, mockingbird, state bird. Capital is Jackson, Mississippi. State flower is the magnolia. Oh, I love magnolias. I wonder what that ring is all about. State tree is also the magnolia. Here's a fun fact about Mississippi. Where the teddy bear was named, Theodore Roosevelt wouldn't shoot a bear, so the stuffed ones are named after him. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, guys. Say goodbye to Scoob and G-Ma, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hope you're doing fine. Miss you lots.